going to start with Dana, who's to my immediate left. Dana was most recently the head of innovation at Tapestry, a major multinational luxury company based in New York City. Tapestry owns 3 major global brands: Coach, New York, Stuart Weitzman, and Kate Spade, New York. She has been listed by Digiday in the Glossy 50, recognizing the leaders creating change in fashion, luxury, beauty, and tech, as well as named one of the brand innovators 40 under 40 and Women to Watch. Dana mentors for several tech accelerators and retail tech organizations, including Plug and Play Ventures, New York Fashion Tech, and Decoded Fashion. To her immediate left is Laura Vidal Borrell. Laura is the global head of marketing for immersive computing at HP Hewlett-Packard. She is defining the next generation of immersive computing by operating at the intersection of culture, technology, and business. She played a major role in the creation of the Imaginarium M01, the first phone for kids, Sprout by HP, the first immersive computer, FitStation, and something we're definitely going to ask her about. She is currently working on 3D printed shoes. Okay, so we're going to talk about shoes. Okay. To her immediate left is Peggy van de Plassche. Peggy is a founder and general partner at Roar Ventures, an exciting new VC firm that focuses on Canadian AI, fintech startups, and business-to-business ventures. She enables financial services transformation, is passionate about inclusivity, and is dedicated to building diverse teams. Formerly, Peggy was the VP of Innovation at CIBC. For you non-Canadians, CIBC is one of the big 5 banks in Canada. She is a board member for Front Funder, an advisor to Portage Ventures, the National Crowdfunding and FinTech Association of Canada, and the Digital Finance Institute. And finally, to her left is Anshul Srivastav, who's joined us from Dubai, and it was incidentally his birthday yesterday, so happy birthday to Anshul. And also thank you for that 14-hour plane ride. We've done it a lot, and it's not easy, and we're very, very appreciative of you coming in. Anshul is a global technology leader who has been instrumental in driving technology transformations for a number of multi-billion-dollar businesses. He is currently the Chief Information and Digital Officer at Union Insurance based in Dubai. Prior to Union, Anshul was the VP IT at AXA, the French multinational insurance firm. Recently, he was recognized as CIO of the Year in the MENA region by Computer News Middle East. Okay, so that's the formal intros, right? And now we want to hear what you really do. So Dana, can you kick it off for us, please?
I'm hoping that you don't hate me after saying this, but what I really do right now is I sit on the beach in the Hamptons taking my first vacation in almost 20 years. So I don't feel bad about it. I recently left the role of head of innovation at Tapestry. That role crossed everything from product innovation, in-store experience, customer experience, marketing innovation, like the whole breadth of all things retail. But yeah, right now I'm really enjoying a sabbatical, so sorry.
No, that's good.
Well, I just came back from vacation, so
Okay, I'm seeing a trend here.
I sort of envy the feeling. Wow. So right now I am working on a venture by HP called FitStation. Don't go to the website. It's sort of embarrassing, but it's going to get better. I'm sure some of you guys are at that stage too.
We can help you with it.
I know.
TribalScale can
I guess
help with
that's why I'm here, right?
Okay,
it's
perfect.
that building.
We'll get you an order after.
So what we do is we basically collect biometrics to build personalized products, and we're starting with footwear. So my role in this whole thing is really right now collecting the thoughts and the insight from the founders and building this meaning around the brand. So I guess I'm at the kind of building the foundation for the brand, what it is, why is it relevant, and like kind of like giving it legs, right? Ideas, you guys know that ideas evolve like crazy when you're starting up. So when you're doing brand building, you really want to build a brand that, I call it a fluid brand, right? A brand that can evolve and grow with the ideas. So yeah, that's what I'm doing right now.
I love where the conversation is going. Vacation and shoes, I guess. You know, like we're well set. So I'm launching actually a venture fund, and that's what Jim mentioned. I'll invest in AI, fintech, early stage startup, financial services is my bread and butter. So right now I'm in fundraising mode. For the ones of you who do fundraising, you know that it's an exciting time. And other than that, soon on vacation, next Monday. So that's where my head is at right now as well. Great to be here with you today.
Thank you. Good morning. The thing I do for the last couple of years is just keep changing myself. Changing myself means continuously moving on to a different level. Meet people like you who are sitting in the audience and the people who are there in my panel. Mentor startups to be an adjunct faculty in many management institutes. So yeah, doing a lot of stuff in terms of writing, improving my writing on technology, and my career has been on financial services, so I have brought a lot of change in the financial services industry across Southeast Asia, Europe, Middle East, and Middle East has been my recent journey in the last 2.5 years, so yeah, and I'm here.
Great, thank you. Okay, so let's start off. Dana, I want to start with you. If we define innovation and you look in the dictionary, it basically says something to the effect of using new approaches to solve existing problems or using new approaches to create new opportunities. You know, you're obviously the head of global innovation for Tapestry, a worldwide multinational fashion conglomerate. What does innovation really mean to you? Like let's get down and dirty about it. Like, give us kind of what you think.
Well, I think that I am starting to hate the word innovation, partially because I think it's overused, and I think it's used incorrectly. Especially in legacy companies, what they consider innovation is actually more iteration and not actual innovation. And I think that the other thing is that what most legacy companies or publicly traded companies need before innovation is transformation. And so I think that I am diehard innovation, love innovation, but I also hate the term innovation because what it really means and what that you need in order to get there are very different, right? So I think you need to be willing to transform, to be willing to be uncomfortable, and then once you achieve those things, you can then reach innovation.
Great. Anyone else want to jump in on their definition? Peggy, don't be shy.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. And to Dana's point, I start hating the word innovation as well. I think innovation is very contextual, back to what you mentioned. So if you're based in Canada and you're working in a financial services industry, in a large financial services industry, innovation is going to be very different than if you work in China in a technology startup. So back to the transformation world and iteration, again, a large legacy organization in a very regulated industry, they don't really do any type of innovation. They do, you know, a lot of transformation, very small incremental changes, and what we call innovation for many people would be actually things that they were doing 10 years ago. So.
Right. Yeah.
I agree to what Dana said, that it's one of the most used and abused word in the contextual way. For me, innovation is nothing else but a change. And change personally, professionally, for your organization you work for. I mean, change can be something which has an underlying thing called risk, and which Sheetal did talk about it. Risk is one of the key things in change. Change brings in attitude change, personal change, thought change. So that brings out a clear-cut definition of innovation in all parlance.
Great. So I just want to level set here. Whether we're talking about innovation labs, which means those shiny well-furnished beanbag, ping pong table, glass bowls that you see in, government incubators or in the lobbies of, Fortune 500 companies, or we're talking about teams that are on the 18th floor of Commerce Court, which Peggy probably ran, or, in incubators and accelerators like, DFA in Dubai. For the purposes of this discussion, they all mean the same thing. Whether they're labs or they're teams or they're programs, the point and the goals are similar, which is to output innovation. And I think you nailed it. So instead of talking about like who's involved in your organization with innovation, tell me a little bit about who isn't, but who should be, right? Like, again, today it's all about like tactics, and like we all can sit here and sing kumbaya, yeah, we got this. Tell me who's not involved that should be involved.
Well, I guess I was sitting here, but I'm in the corporate side. HP
Yeah, that was just an
$50
analogy.
billion company. So I think the people that want it but don't understand it tend to be at the top, and those are the ones that you really want to educate, right? And they're the ones that should be championing. And I think the biggest issue is that corporations have a frame of reference that's hard to apply to startups or to new companies. And I always make, how many here are parents? Okay. I always make parenting analogies. I agree, it's a business of humans. So, raising kids is like starting up. And I always feel like startups and innovation in corporations are judged like grandparents judge children and the way we raise children, right? Or your kids don't have good habits, or your kids are so picky, your kids are so rowdy, they don't go to bed early. And it's the same thing, right? Like I run a small business, and when I have to talk to the region, which is the ones that actually run the business, I'm always told like, oh, you're not big enough, or your plans are always changing. I'm like, of course they're always changing, right? This is a startup, toddlers change. So I think there is this like lack of education at the top on what it actually takes to do innovation. And I agree with the idea of ring fencing and creating a blueprint. So you really have to set expectations on how startup, at least within a corporation, which is what I know best, is actually managed and is actually measured, so that you're not basically burned to the ground by the expectations that multi-billion-dollar businesses have. So yeah, definitely the guys at the top and the ladies at the top. Yep.
If I may jump on that, one of the challenge with that is that people have to run their day-to-day business, and they're told, okay, now you just innovate on the side, and well, they go by default to what they know and what they're assessed on. So performance review in large organizations are mainly based on, okay, did you hit these 3, 4, 5 goals? And there is nothing related to innovation on that. So you end up with people really kind of taking risks without having any guarantee that they will be rewarded. So not many people want to do that in large organizations, especially when you're at the top, and I apologize for that, but if you're at the top of a large organization, it's because you are a political animal very often. So you're not going to take a lot of risk. So
We'll come back to that one.
So I was very fortunate at Tapestry to have a C-suite that was involved in innovation and was excited about innovation. But to answer your question of like who's not involved that needs to be involved, from my experience has been in 2 areas of the organization. It's the senior level executives, not the C-suite. The people that are vice presidents and senior vice presidents that are involved in day-to-day decision-making that are typically the #1 blockers to innovative ideas or execution seeing the light of day. The CEO is not blocking innovation. It is the senior executives of each business unit that have the most power and potential to block progress. The other place where there's a big issue is the board of directors, especially of a publicly traded company, because right now, the CEO is incentivized by certain KPIs of the business, which are sales and stock price. And until the board starts rewarding the CEO for moves that are innovative, it will always be a challenge to kind of move forward and make progress, because you're actually running against the current of where the company is trying to go organizationally.
Yeah, so I couldn't wait to jump on this, because this is like the political animal and the senior executive thing. Last night at dinner, I won't name the company or the person, but we were talking to a large landlord. I mean, they have retail, they have office, they have mixed use. And he's a younger person, kind of in his 40s. He's got all these great ideas. Listen, I'm in my mid-40s and I feel young. It's all good. And you guys all look younger, but anyway. So he's got all these world-changing ideas and all these sort of things, and he just keeps running up against, and let's just call it what it is, bullshit and bureaucracy, right? There's people that have been at that company for 20 years that got to where they are because of what you said, Peggy, right? And now he's blocked. And we all know what's going on with malls in America, and it's coming to Canada. And the same thing with WeWork and all those others. Like, how do you break through, right? Like, you've got these people here who are probably 4 or 5 years from retirement, don't want to do anything to rock the boat. They're happy to coast into retirement. You've got this up and coming, executive, wants to change the world, is armed with all of these ideas and resources. What do you do?
You fire them. No, I'm just kidding.
Well,
I think what you do is you need the C-suite to push on that level to ultimately put their jobs at risk. And it seems a bit negative, but when someone comes in, and I was guilty of this, like gangbusters, like we're gonna do all this cool shit. And what most people saw in the organization was, she's gonna make me do more work that I already don't have time to do. And so I think it has to then come from the bosses of that tier, so typically the C-suite, to force the issue.
Yeah.
I don't really see another way.
Yeah.
Or fire.
Anyone else?
To an extent, I agree with all the panelists. But yeah, there are ways to manage that. People have a lot of baggages, insecurities. The KPIs Dana talked about, that they have numbers to take care of, because the bonuses, the incentives are lined up with that. But you can do a lot of things. And personally, I have done that in a place like Dubai, where things were like Stone Age things in terms of technology. I had to break that glass. And I said, okay, go ahead with your KPIs, but I'm coming to you to give you numbers. I'm not going to talk technology. I'm not going to talk innovation. I'm going to give you that number. This number, if you give that confidence, run some pilots, get that executed, the baggage gets offloaded. I'm telling you. The baggage they carry is if I innovate or if I change, what will happen to me? The insecurity. And that insecurity you have to break through by talking the language they understand, by giving them confidence, by running pilots, by running some POCs. It helps, it works. And it has worked with me, whether in French multinational like AXA, where a lot of innovation and things have done. Same in Dubai. I mean, it was tough, and it was unknown territory for me. But yeah, I mean, people are, my CEO, by the way, is 68, and he's going to turn 69 in July. And a person who was so manual at things is now the CEO of the biggest digital insurance in the Middle East. Yeah. So change has happened. Now he sees revenue coming in. He cut down the cost, the KPI, the expense, everything which looks good on balance sheet is in order.
Yeah.
So
okay.
You just have to break through that.
Got it. So fight political animals with new political animals, right? So I want to pick up on something that Dana said earlier about, and I love this, because innovation just gets thrown around, and putting out a mobile app that streamlines the way you post jobs in your company is called innovation, right? Disrupting a business, and on the other end of it, it's like creating a whole new business that's supposed to disrupt your legacy, but is also innovation, right? So what I want to talk about now is incremental versus disruptive innovation, within corporations. And what I really want to ask all of you is, can we build Uber at GM? Can we build Netflix at Comcast? Like, is it possible? Or are we forever relegated to use my analogy earlier, team startup and team corporate, you know, paying 10 times more what they should be paying for team startup, screwing it up, and then maybe getting one or two right, or team startup becoming this big IPO public company on their own and disrupting, you know, the legacy businesses. So can Uber be built at GM?
Well, I think that's extremely tough to build Uber at GM, and I'm sure everyone read that case studies on Nespresso and Nestlé, and the fact that Nespresso is a great success, but it almost got killed twice by the mothership. So they really had to put it at arm's length to make sure it can survive. So you really need to have a lot of financial mean and a lot of executive support behind that type of project for it to be successful. But for that, when you're a publicly traded company, the challenge is how much money can you put on a new venture before your shareholders come and say, well, it seems like a side project to me. So I think for very regulated or legacy industries, very difficult to build the new Uber or the new Airbnb or so on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree with that. I guess yeah, you have to be a bit of a masochist to be in one of those projects, and it really hurts. I think that the incentive that corporations can have to sponsor projects like that is that they are awesome PR projects. So the people working in those projects really have to find a balance, I hate the word finding a balance because it sounds like mediocrity, but they have to know when to, you know, they have to play the PR role. So I said, like, we were the PR bitch for like 2 years, and then you really have to do that. But like in the background, you have to really be creating a business. So I agree with POCs, building prototypes, learning and evolving, because the next new shiny kit in 2 years will be the next PR shiny thing, right? So you have a 2-year period to really prove the business. So that's how I think you can play this kind of like semi-disruptive innovation play in a corporation. So do the PR play for 2 years, and then in the background really build a business and exit as a business, so they'll move into the next shiny thing. Yeah.
So there's one way I've seen it work, and it's basically when an organization is formed as almost as a separate company within the GM or within Tapestry. And so what I mean by that is you are probably operating under a different name, but you have the access to all the benefits and infrastructure of the large organization. You most likely should not even have that team on site in your corporate headquarters, because the culture of your corporate office is not conducive to building these types of companies. But you will have the opportunity to attract the right talent who maybe just isn't in that stage of their life where they can afford to, or they even want to, go to a startup and make no money for the first couple of years. So there is definitely an opportunity and some white space there for companies to do it, but they really have to separate it from their organization, because there are just too many factors on the way a corporate culture is run that will block progress.
I love it. That is an epic blueprint. I love that. Okay, so I was going to ask about successes, but I'm much more interested in the fuck-ups. So, give me like a not so fail fast. Give me an innovation that you, excuse me, you are an investor in, you incubated within your organization, you were close to. Like, success has, you know, so many mothers, and failures are not orphan. Tell me about your orphans in public, in front of 1,000 people.
I've I've got a few, obviously, because I'm former, right? So I must have done something wrong. Let's see. My first project inside the Coach brand was a battery charging handbag, which you could never buy because we never let it out on the market. Ironically, the reason we never let it out on the market was because Kate Spade, who we then bought 2 years later, had announced their battery charging handbag, and there was the fear of, is their product going to be perceived better or worse than ours? And I had to answer that question to our COO, and I said, well, if you really want to get into the technical side, our battery is a better battery, it's a faster battery, but from a customer experience, they don't have wires, we have wires, so that we never launched the product, and we should have. To me, that was an epic fail because we could have opened up a product path that now the Coach brand just won't even touch because of it.
Wow.
That was one. And another failure is something that was a brilliant, if I might say so myself, innovation that is sitting in the lab that I no longer work at and will never see the light of day because it was an augmented reality experience for retail that actually made sense. It was tied to product personalization. I still believe in it to this day, but the reason that it failed is because it was a tech-first strategy and not a product-first strategy, and what that meant was the product that tech was supporting was not a significant product for the company, so you would never have the real ROI that you wanted because we only sell a couple of those a year. And so the failure there was the tech was sound, the experience was great, but the return on that investment was never going to show up because even if you increase sales of that product by 500%, it would still be ROI negative.
Interesting. Who else?
I have a couple, but I won't be as precise as
You have to give us one, Peggy, and it has to be something like with meat on it.
I will, and I won't be as precise just because it includes a strategic partnership.
Okay.
And there is one side of the equation that was definitely not responsible for the failure. So what I've seen very much happening when we try to do a strategic partnership between a large organization and a startup or a small organization, always the same elements that drive failure. So whether there is no real project manager associated with that project, so someone is just doing it on the side of its desk, or sorry, so her or his desk, and obviously there is not enough focus on that. Or if it's some type of B2C project, there is no marketing dollar associated with that. Or you don't have enough executive support. So it's more like wide criteria that when I advise my self-startup, I tell them, okay, make sure you have that aligned because that might sound good to partner with an institution as a PR. The work and the resources you're going to put into that will never yield any results. So maybe the PR exercise could have a better ROI with another direction. So that's the type of failure I've seen.
Okay. Anyone else? Otherwise, I'm going to ask you about the shoes.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
Go ahead, Anshul.
Yeah, like Peggy has a couple of failures. I had many failures, and the prime failure I'm going to talk about is I was launching a digital transformation for my ex-employer, and there were 1,000 people who were called on, the partners, the customers. It was a big thing for the company because the business case I built on that was worth multi-million dollars in that particular year itself, and didn't work. On the stage when my CEO and myself were standing and we wanted to launch it, it didn't work that day, and that day was a bad day for me. I thought I've lost everything in my life. So yeah, it did work, but when it got rolled out, believe me, that year itself, it overachieved the numbers by 100%. So failure turning to a success. So I see an opportunity in there, turning into a success. Then the second failure was one of my first blockchain projects, which was on building eKYC digital identity for our customers and partners. Till today, it's not live. and it's been like 2.5 years now. So, I mean, it's a failure. I invested on it. Fortunately, the way I invest with startups is like, you come over to my office. There's a lab in there. Come, solve my case, and take away the money. I mean, you invest, we invest. The startups, 2 startups came up for that, and both failed. So you give an opportunity, you don't know where it's going to head, and like Jesse talked about change management, the change manager should be there, the project manager. At that stage, those startups have terrible change and project managers.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, Laura, talk to me about these battery-powered 3D shoes.
Not battery powered.
They're not battery-powered?
Not yet.
You're not talking to Dana. You should talk to Dana. She can get you a battery.
I'll talk to the product manager. So it's interesting because I would say it's the product of a failure. So Immersive was born with Sprout. I don't know how many of you guys know about Sprout. It's a dual screen computer. It has a projected UI. It has a set of cameras, an RGB camera, 3D camera. And the idea is, when we create content, we have all these ideas, all these basically unstructured things that a keyboard, it just won't do, right? So we were looking for a computing experience that basically you could put your thoughts on digital, in a very fluid way. Well, guess what? It's super expensive. Windows is horrible, so our experience just doesn't fly, right? So you could consider that a failure.
Yeah.
It's in the market. It actually sells. It never went as big as HP expected, right?
Yeah.
But in the course of doing Sprout, we had that 3D camera. So we were like, hey, let's start experimenting with 3D scanning. And something we found out is 3D scanning is actually, there's many techniques to 3D scan and many reasons why you would want to 3D scan. And it's really hard. Things that are transparent, shiny, flurry, fuzzy, floppy, which is basically everything, they don't scan very well. The other thing is you can't scan things that are trademarked. I mean, we had issues with books with 2D scanning. Imagine with like things that are owned by a brand, right? But there's one thing that scans very well, and it's skin. Human skin scans beautifully, right? And we're all very unique. So we thought, well, here's a reason why you may want to 3D scan something. If you're creating something for someone and you want to do it uniquely, that's sort of a good idea. So fast forward, the beauty of FeedStation is that we put together a team that had product people, had customer people, and had a person that focused on the money. And I think that's very important in startups, right? We tend to either fall in love with the insight or fall in love with the technology, but sometimes we forget about the money, right? And you need to have line of sight to a business. And what's making it work is that we have this third leg, right? That's really building the deals, the art of the deal to really make the business work. So what we're doing is we're capturing biometrics. So right now it's feed-related biometrics. So pressure and the shape of your food. And with that, we have proprietary algorithms that turn it into manufacturing instructions to create, at this moment, running shoes. So basically, so we 3D print insoles, but we inject with variable densities the soles of running shoes. And the first shoe will come out at the end of the year. And it's done by Brooks. So the runners in the room must know the brand.
Super
and
cool.
There's like all these other brands
Love
that
it.
will be using it. Yep.
Love it. I have no idea how much time I have left, so I'm just going to keep going until someone just pulls me off. I want to ask one last question, then I'm going to open it up because I think it's important to interact. Okay, so trade shows, periodicals, TechCrunch, innovation, like research reports. I don't want to hear. Like, give me your secret of your success. Like, how do you guys are all innovators. You all work with startups. Give me like the one thing you do to stay on top of trends and on top of innovation. And you can't say any of the things I said. Like seriously, like give us the secret sauce here. Like that's what people paid to see and hear.
I watch movies.
Okay, what kind of movies?
Sci-fi, Black Mirror,
Love
you name it, right?
Love
like those that are imagining whether it's positive or negative, what the future might or should look like, for me, is very inspiring. And, you know, hang out with other friends that work in innovation and tech, and, you know, a couple bottles of rosé and some brilliant ideas come to be. That's what I do at my Hamptons house. We've started 2 businesses accidentally over rosé so far.
I'm going to do one question.
Yeah, I'm gonna try Jose. Like Dana, I watch a lot of sci-fi. It was initially against my will. My husband loved that, and finally I was like, oh, actually these are great ideas. And Black Mirror is definitely a favorite of mine. I read a lot on things that are outside my industries, because one of the big challenge when you're working in innovation is to think that your client every morning gets up thinking about your industry and about innovation. Most people, they actually, especially in financial services, they don't want to hear about you. So that's the big challenge when you, and I hang out with a lot of people in innovation, tech, and all that stuff, but the challenge that you tend to have a myopic view and think that everyone is like you. So really reading on things outside the industries and hanging out with people outside of innovation is actually also very, very important.
Okay. So I'm into a couple of things which actually makes me a different leader in my financial services industry. First, I throw myself out like Peggy into different industry folks, take their learnings, and then best practices across. Like manufacturing gives a good Six Sigma kind of stuff, and the manufacturing has given a lot of things to services. So I pick it from manufacturing, and the place I am is a manufacturing hub or a oil and gas stuff hub where you meet people and take a lot of learnings from them. Then I'm into sports, so regularly into football and tennis. I take a lot of things from my sports.
Yeah, that's cool. Cool.
I mean, the day you are there on the field and the way you have to take decisions on the spot, that makes you a different person altogether. So, I mean, that's something I'm into regularly, and yeah, these are things I do.
Cool. Laura, anything, or before I open it up? Yeah, go ahead.
Just hanging out with non-tech people.
Yeah,
I agree.
man.
I think
Yeah.
I've always worked in projects that were ahead of the curve. Not all of them. I mean, we had some successes, but many were ahead. So just hanging out with people who are not in tech, you know, most of my friends are not in tech. That really helps you, you know, really dial that relevance factor. And I have 2 very young children, so it's not like I'm hanging out a lot these days.
Cool. So they said no time for questions, but innovation is about breaking rules, so we're going to take questions. Go ahead. Yeah, here.
Thank you.
So actually, I don't have a question. I have an answer for you, Roger. You asked, can General Motors disrupt? And
Can they build Uber?
Can they build Uber? And
Yeah.
I would say I think so.
Okay.
And I think there are a number of things that were talked about on the panel that I think are important. I think that the leadership at the very top, so the CEO, Mary Barra, is asking every employee to disrupt themselves beyond the traditional vehicles, cars, and trucks that they build. We truly are, so you could probably guess I'm a General Motors employee.
That's a disclaimer. No, you're not allowed to say anything else. No, I'm kidding. Go ahead.
No. A number of things. So I'm the Senior Manager of Innovation at General Motors of Canada. And co-location and being separate from the mothership is an important thing, because you're right, you have to have the culture. We are incrementally innovating and disrupting ourselves, and we are looking at ways to disrupt. We used to see ourselves as traditional car and truck company, and now we are our new mandate is to transform humanity, and basically we're looking for a vision of zero emissions, zero congestion, and zero crashes, and that is truly a disruption to what we're doing now.
Cool.
So
Okay, we appreciate that.
We're doing all things, design thinking, agile,
Thank you.
all the great things that you guys are doing.
Thank you. Anyone got a question? Go ahead. Yeah.
I heard the word design thinking, and I'm curious if any of you has an opinion on where design should be situated in an organization, because I work in an organization where they could use I believe they could use some advice on that, so I'm just interested. Where does design belong? Where does design thinking or design leadership situate in an innovative organization?
It's a challenging question because when you're at a company whose core business is design, so design is everywhere, which is also challenging, but you have different disciplines of design, right? So the person who's designing shoes or handbags or jackets is completely unrelated to, let's say, user experience or even design around customer experience. So design should sit in every department based on the discipline that it's most relevant to that department, because they are different.
Cool.
Can you have a successful organization if people at the top end of the organization, if not one individual in that, has an understanding of design?
It's hard for me to answer that because as a fashion company, your creative director and your CEO, everyone is design-centric. But I think that if they don't have an understanding of it, they have to at least have a respect for it and understand that they need to elect a champion that they will defer to and feel confident and comfortable with that behavior.
Cool. Okay, everyone, thank you. Let's give our panelists a round of applause.